In this video, I'll discuss subject-verb agreement as well as verb agreement with pronoun use. The basic rule with subjects and verbs is something you probably know already, or at least have learned somewhere along the line, and that is that a verb needs to agree with its subject in number. And really all that means is that singular subjects need singular verbs. If we look at the first example here, the puppy is singular, and so we need to have a singular verb that goes along with it. He is singular, so we need to have a singular verb that goes along with it. If you have a plural subject, you need a plural verb. The puppies were lonely as opposed to the puppy was lonely. They were left alone as opposed to he was stuck in a kennel. Where things start to get a little fuzzier is when you begin to make more sophisticated and complex looking sentences by adding phrases and clauses throughout your writing. And we have some examples here, and the rule that goes with this is that the number of the subject isn't changed even if you have clauses or phrases following the subject. So if we look at this first sentence, the rooms on this side of the school blank cooler than others, we need to mark our phrases on this side and of the school. And who or what is the sentence about? It's about the rooms. Rooms is plural, and so we need to have a plural subverb, even though the phrase next to it has a singular noun. We don't pay attention to those because the simple subject itself is plural. The second example, only one of us blank allowed to play, is the same thing. We have an infinitive here at the end. We have a prepositional phrase of us. Our subject is one, and one is singular, and so we have only one was allowed to play. Singular verb, singular subject. Same with the third sentence, neither of the movies blank to me. Of the movies is a prepositional phrase. To me is a prepositional phrase. Our subject is neither, and since it's singular, we need to have the singular form of the verb, which is appeals rather than appeal. It's a little counterintuitive. A lot of verbs ending in S are singular verbs as opposed to the plural verb that has no S. But neither appeals to me. If you take the phrase out, you can hear what's correct. And the last sentence is a little longer and a little more like the writing that you are likely to do. Some causes of this terrible and horrifying disease that strikes millions of children is our poor nutrition and lack of health care. And so here what I would do, because there's so many words, is I would start marking up my phrases. Of this terrible and horrifying disease that strikes millions of children, got a clause there, and of health care. So if I get rid of all of that extra stuff, I can see that causes is my subject and causes are, there's my verb. I have to get rid of all of the extra stuff and the extra words to figure out what that subject is so that I can be sure that I'm using the correct verb along with it. If you have compound subjects and they're joined by the word and, they usually require a plural verb form. And this again is one that you can oftentimes hear what's correct. Mikhail and Dasha play varsity basketball. I see I have a word missing there, sorry. Play, we're missing a verb, so we don't really have a sentence. But Mikhail and Dasha play varsity basketball. We have a compound subject that needs to go with a plural verb form. A singular form of play would be plays, and we wouldn't say Mikhail and Dasha plays varsity basketball. They play basketball. Second sentence, Scout and Jem respect their father. Two people, Scout and Jem, what are they doing? They are respecting. You wouldn't say Scout and Jem respects their father. If we had just one of the nouns, we would say Scout respects her father, and that would be the singular form. And finally, hockey and basketball are winter sports. You can see the pattern here. Compound subject, plural verb form. The third rule with subject-verb agreement is that if you have a compound subject joined by neither or nor or, then you have to look at the subject nearest the verb. So if we look at these sentences, and I put them in pairs for a reason, neither the lead singer nor the dancers were on time. My subjects here are singer and dancers, so I have a singular and a plural compound subject, but it's joined by that conjunction nor, so I know that I need to look at the subject nearest the verb, which is dancers, and go with the plural verb form. The second sentence, I simply reverse the two subjects, dancers nor singer. Now singer, the singular form, is nearest the verb, and so I have to have the singular verb form. Second set, same thing holds true. This is the either or example rather than the neither nor. So I have or, I have a plural subject and a singular subject, and even though there is a prepositional phrase between that single subject and the verb, it's still the one nearest the verb. So the banana is, and the second reverse sentence, we have banana or apples on the table, but apples is plural, so we need to use are there. That's the either or neither nor rule with subject-verb agreement. Pronouns also are bound by the same rules of subject-verb agreement and pronoun agreement. In the charts on the right here, you'll see that pronouns can be divided into singular indefinites, plural indefinites, and there are some that can go both ways. This particular bottom chart here identifies the singular indefinite pronouns. And they're indefinite because they don't necessarily have an obvious antecedent or noun that comes before them. But much like the verbs, if they're singular, they require a singular verb form. So everything was in disarray. Everything is here on our singular chart, so we need to have a singular verb that goes along with it. No one seems worried about the test. One is singular, so the verb needs to be singular as well. And someone sounds out of tune. Singular someone, so singular verb form. Logically then, plural indefinite pronouns require plural verbs. And there aren't as many plural indefinites, both few, many, and several, but they're always plural. So if you see them in a sentence, you know that you need the plural verb form. The students weren't doing their work because several were confused about the instructions. Several is a plural indefinite, so we need a plural verb. Many were, same thing, and few sound. All the same rule. Indefinite, plural, pronoun requiring a plural verb form. Finally, we have the case of the indefinites that can be singular or plural, and we have to treat these in a special way. If you remember back to the subject-verb agreement rule, one of the things was that we ignore the prepositional phrases when determining subject-verb agreement. However, when you have pronouns and indefinite pronouns, you need to pay attention to those in the case of these 5 pronouns, all, some, none, most, and any. And when you see an all, some, none, most, or any functioning as the subject of the sentence, you need to pay attention to the prepositional phrases that follow that particular subject. So if we look at our examples here, we'll see most of the students in the class were prepared for the test. I'm going to mark my prepositional phrases, and I've got 3 here, and then I can clearly see that my subject is most. Most is a special indefinite, so I have to look at the prepositional phrase next to it. Students is plural, so I need a plural verb form. In the second sentence, same thing. I mark my prepositional phrases. Some is my subject. I look at that object of preposition is singular, referring to some, and was then must be my verb, a singular verb because I have a singular pronoun in this particular case. If we look at a few examples here and walk through them, you'll see how this works in practice. A flock of blue herons appears each evening at the salt marsh. This is the rule where we ignore the of blue herons because this is simple subject-verb agreement. This isn't indefinite pronouns, it's subjects and verbs. And my subject is flock. There's one flock, and therefore it appears, that's the singular verb form, each evening at the salt marsh. The next one, we do have an indefinite, each of the volumes in the trilogy. Each is always singular, so I need to use a singular verb form. Third sentence, some of the snow was or were melted by the warm sun. Some is one of the indefinite pronouns that can be singular or plural. So in this case, I do need to look at that prepositional phrase next to it. Snow is singular, so I need the singular verb form here. And finally, most of the cars was or were dirty as a result of the puddles. Again, a subject that can be singular or plural depending on the context. We have a prepositional phrase with a plural object, so we need a plural verb form. Most were dirty as a result of the puddles. If you remember to pay attention to the subject and the verb in these sentences, you will be ahead of the game. And then also remember those handful of indefinite pronouns. If you can identify that indefinite pronoun as singular or plural, you need to just pay attention to the pronoun itself. but when you have those special 5, you need to look at the phrases next to them.